So we come to the 10th video of fighter's career, match by match, and we come to Leon Spinks. So Leon Spinks was born on July 11th, 1953, a year after the Helsinki Summer Olympics and the Oslo, Norway Winter Olympics. But talking Olympics, him and his brother, Michael Spinks, who was born on the 14th of July, a little bit later, both won golds at the 1976 Montreal Olympics, as did Sugar Ray Leonard, beating Aldama, the Cuban, in the final, and Leo Randolph. He's the one I could think about on the other video, and Howard Davis, who got the Val Barker Trophy for the best boxer. There were 5 golds they got there. Was it Charles Mooney or Chris Mooney? Charles Mooney, I think. The bantamweight, he got silver, and John Tate got bronze. In heavyweight, obviously Tifilio Stevenson won the gold, as he did 3 consecutive times. 1972. 1976 and 1980. Them 3 consecutive golds for Tifilio Stevenson and the amateurs. But yeah, I mean, Leon Spinks shares his birthday with the great Len Harvey, who was born on the 11th of July also. And Michael Spinks is a day before Conor McGregor's birthday on the 14th of July. Obviously in the 80s, 88 I think it was. He was born, McGregor, he was July the 13th, Michael Spinks, and McGregor was born on the 14th, obviously different times. Day before Leon Spinks' birthday, 10th of July, you had the great Jake LaMotta born. Obviously not the same year as these, but just the same birthdays. And Mike the Bounty Hunter, who has a son fighting now. But Mike the Bounty Hunter was a sparring partner to Mike Tyson, one of his most regular sought after sparring partners, with Oliver McCall, etc. So I'm digressing massively. Let's go to the career of Leon Spinks. Leon Spinks' bodyguard was Lawrence Tarood, better known as Mr. T. There was a little argy-bargy one time with Larry Holmes and Leon Spinks, and he got involved in the middle of it, Lawrence Tarood. But anyway, I'm digressing. Let's go straight on to his career. There's a little bit of background there. Leon Spinks' first fight was against Bob Smith by TKO in the 5th round of the scheduled 6th on January the 15th, 1977. That was the same year they spent the Voyager rockets up, that's still going now, meant to stop sending signals in the year 2025. And we go back to Leon Spinks' second fight. So he's just won the Olympic gold with his brother, and the first brothers to do that, I'm sure. Golds, different weights obviously. And he comes straight in 1977. So the Montreal Olympics, 1976. You had the Winter Olympics in Australia, Innsbruck, the second Austria in Innsbruck in 1976. But again, I am digressing too much, so I'm going to get straight on with Leon Spinks' career. We're in 1977 again for another fight. Leon Spinks' second fight, he fights Peter Freeman, wins by a 1-round KO on March the 5th, 1977 at the Liverpool Stadium in Liverpool, England. He fought in England in his second fight. His first fight was at the Aladdin at Paradise in Nevada against Bob Smith. So we go to Leon Spinks' third fight. He fights Jerry McIntyre and beats Jerry McIntyre by a KO in the first round also on March the 20th, 1977 at the Exposition Centre in Louisville, Kentucky, home to 3 world heavyweight champions, Marvin Hart, Greg Page, and the great Muhammad Ali. So Leon Spinks has his 4th fight, and he beats Pedro Augusto in his 4th fight, again by a 1-round KO on May the 7th, 1977, at the Kiel Auditorium at St. Louis in Missouri. That host, yeah. So Leon Spinks' 5th fight, he fights Bruce Scott, beats Bruce Scott by a KO in the 3rd round on June the 1st, 1977, at the Forum at Montreal in Quebec, Canada. And again, June the 1st, Muhammad Ali would have a sort of showcase with June the 1st, 1976, exactly a year to the day before this. Muhammad Ali would do a promotion for his upcoming wrestling and boxing match against Inuki on the 26th of June 1976. But on June the 1st, I get to the point, he had a sort of promotion with Gorilla Monsoon. He got up in the ring in his suit. I'm sure if he took his shoes off, I can't remember. Something tells me he did a bit of sparring around, and then obviously it's a work, obviously. Gorilla Monsoon grabs him and does an aeroplane spin with Butch Lewis at ringside getting involved. So, but this is 77, exactly a year later, June the 1st, 1977. Obviously, worth mentioning, Leon Spinks did do wrestling stuff a lot later on in his career for FMW, Frontier Martial Arts Wrestling Federation. He did a couple of mainly works, but he did a couple of sort of proper shoots, because in the Japanese organisations they have proper shoots in with the works. But I digress. He did well there as well. Brilliant what he did. So Leon Spinks gets the first little blip, gets a draw against Scott Ledoux, split decision, a draw on October the 22nd, 1977, at the Aladdin at Paradise in Nevada. Now, Leon Spinks has his 7th fight when he beats Alfio Righetti on a unanimous decision over 10 rounds on November the 18th, 1977, at Caesar's Palace at Paradise in Nevada. So after 7 fights, only winning 6 fights, drawing 1, he fights Muhammad Ali for the title and wins. Becomes the first, well, yeah, it's still a record. Obviously, he had Lomachenko fighting for the title in his 2nd fight. Jack Skelly against George Dixon in his 1st fight. And Tommy Burns defended against someone who had he was only in his 2nd fight. Jeff Fennick fought a lot earlier. Something like this, 7 or 6 fights for a world title. But Leon Spinks still unique here, beating the butterfly, the old butterfly at this time, on split decision over 15 rounds on February the 15th, 1978, at Las Vegas Hilton at Winchester in Nevada, winning the record time for the division. His 8th fight, wins the WBA, WBC, and ring and heavyweight titles in 1978, the same year that Argentina won the World Soccer Cup in Argentina, beating Holland 3-1 in the final. That's Holland, they got beaten 2-1 by Germany in 1974. Consecutive World Soccer Cup finals, but he partied very, very hard, Leon Spinks, and in his 9th fight, he loses to Muhammad Ali. Muhammad Ali becoming the first man in history in the heavyweight division to win the heavyweight division title 3 times. When he loses to Muhammad Ali, a unanimous decision over 15 rounds on September the 15th, 1978, at the Superdome New Orleans in Louisiana. He lost his WBA and ring heavyweight title, so he keeps the WBC. I think he might have got stripped of that because he was meant to fight Ken Norton. I know Ken Norton ended up with it. Unfortunately, Ken Norton, some classic close fights with Ali, but yeah, he's well taught. He never won a fight for the title, unfortunately. He got given it, but it doesn't say what he's about, Ken Norton, because he was a great fighter. Unfortunately, he's just got that that story connected to him. So, Leon Spinks' 10th fight, he fights South African, the man with the bionic hands. He had so many broken hands, Jerry Coates here, rebuilt with metal. They called him the man with the bionic hand. He lost to Bruno a lot later in his career in the first round, but I'm digressing. So Jerry Coates beats Leon Spinks in his 10th fight by a TKO in the first round for Schedule 12 on June the 24th, 1979. The same year they would create the Cruiserweight division. And that was at La Chapelle del Espace in Fontvieille in Monaco. So Leon Spinks comes back with a win in his 11th fight against Alfredo Evangelista by KO in the 5th round of a Schedule 10 on January the 12th, 1980 at the Steel Pier at Atlantic City in New Jersey. 1980 was the year of the Moscow Summer Olympics, which the USA boycotted, but a weird sort of happening that the USA got the Winter Olympics, 1980 Winter Olympics at Lake Placid. I think I said it was Squaw Valley. Basically, USA had the Squaw Valley 1960 Olympics, Winter Olympics that was. The Summer Olympics there was in Rome. Muhammad Ali won that gold there. But here, in 11th fight for Leon Spinks, he fights Alfredo Evangelista from Uruguay. Originally, he fought out of Spain also. I think Argentina also at one point. But he got done for smuggling drugs later on. But he gets a win against Alfredo Evangelista, a 5th round KO on January 12th, 1980. And 1980 was the year in that Olympics when Filio Stevenson would get his last of the 3 gold medals consecutively as Cuba would boycott the 1984 Los Angeles Olympics. That was the second Olympics held in Los Angeles and the third Olympics held in the USA. Again, the other Los Angeles Olympics was in 1932, and the first of the USA Olympics was in St. Louis, Missouri in 1904. So I'm digressing. So Leon Spinks in his 12th fight gets a draw of Eddie Lopez. A split decision draw over 10 rounds on March the 8th, 1980 at the Aladdin Paradise in Nevada, USA. And on that day, March the 8th in 1971, exactly 9 years to the day of this date, Muhammad Ali started his trilogy with Joe Frazier on March the 8th, 1971, getting put down, losing but winning the next 2. On the 28th of January 1974, and winning also the Fuller in Manila on October the 1st, 1975. So, come back to this. Leon Spinks in his 13th fight wins by a TKO in the 8th round of a Schedule 10 on April the 3rd, 1980 at the Circle Star Theatre at San Carlos in California. Then Leon Spinks in his 14th fight fights Bernardo Mercado, opponent of Ernie Shavers. I think he stopped Ernie Shavers late in his career. I might be wrong. Top of my head. I know he fought him. So, 14th fight. Leon Spinks wins by TKO in the 9th round against Bernardo Mercado on October the 2nd, 1980 at Caesar's Palace at Paradise in Nevada. So, Leon Spinks' 15th fight. He gets another shot at the title, the WBC this time. Yeah, because he didn't defend it, I'm sure. I'm sure he didn't. Not sure if that's right, actually. Because I know Norton fought Larry Holmes for the WBC, but I thought he got given it. Then he fought Larry Holmes and tried to defend it. I might be wrong, but anyway. Leon Spinks loses to Larry Holmes by KO in the third round on 12th of June 1981 at Joe Louis Arena in Detroit, in Michigan. Apparently that's for the WBC and ring titles. I have to check that, see if that's right. Might be wrong. I know Larry Holmes beat Ken Norton. That's a WBC title also. So again, I'm sure it would have said he was defending it. He must have lost it, got stripped, and then come back to fight for it. That's right, I'm sure. Yeah, that's right. That is right. He's already fought Norton. So I'm digressing. So Leon Spinks' 16th fight. He fights Ivy Brown, wins a unanimous decision on a 10-round unanimous decision on the 24th of February 1982 at the Playboy Hotel and Casino at Atlantic City in New Jersey. 24th of February be the birthday of Floyd Mayweather in 1977, I think that was. Yeah, I'm sure it was. Obviously 2 days later, 26th of February, I know Chuck Wepner has his birthday, not in the same years, but I'm digressing. So this was 1982, February 24th, 1982, same year as the World Soccer Cup in Spain, which Italy beating Germany 3-1 in the final. So obviously the cruiserweight division was created in 1979, and he fights in the cruiserweight division for the NABF title. He wins the NABF cruiserweight title. In his 17th fight, Leon Spinks beats Jesse Burnett by unanimous decision over 12 rounds on October 31st, 1982 at the Great George Resort at McAfee in New Jersey. He wins the vacant North American Federation Boxing Cruiserweight title. A day out, it's nearly 8 years to the day, apart from a day here. So 30th of October 1974, that was when Muhammad Ali won the heavyweight title for the second time, beating George Foreman in Kanasha, Zaire. That was the 30th of October, a day out. So nearly 8 years to the day. Muhammad Ali won his title on the 30th of October 1974 against George Foreman in the 8th round by knocking him out. But we come back to Leon Spinks' 18th fight. Now again, he fights Carlos de Leon, who won the cruiserweight title 3 times. One of the best in that short era, from 1979 onwards, when the cruiserweight division was created. One of the best. He's up in the top 3, I'd say. But Leon Spinks, in his 18th fight, he fights Carlos de Leon from Puerto Rico and loses in retirement in the 6th round of a Schedule 10 on March the 6th, 1983 at the Broadway by the Bay Theatre at Atlantic City in New Jersey. So Leon Spinks' 19th fight, he beats Luke Guerrera by a 4-round TKO on Schedule 10 on February 21st, 1985 at the Cobo Arena, Detroit, Michigan, at Detroit in Michigan. The same year that the great Custamato, trainer of Jose Torres, Floyd Patterson and Mike Tyson. Rocky Graziano in his early career. Had trainers train under him as Eddie Atlas and Kevin Rooney. He would die on 4th of November of this year, 1985. But this was February 21st, 1985. Leon Spinks beat Luke Guerrera. So Leon Spinks in his 20th fight beats Rick Keller by a TKO in the second round of the Scheduled 10 on April the 9th, 1985 at the Beasdale Center Arena, Honolulu in Hawaii. So Leon Spinks in his 21st fight fights Tom Fischer and beats Tom Fischer by unanimous decision over 10 rounds on 9th of May 1985 at the Cobo Arena at Detroit in Michigan. Leon Spinks would enter a sort of exhibition match with a guy called Joe Louis. Not the Joe Louis we know, the boxer. That's spelled Louis. It's Lewis. Lewis. Joe Louis, he was a karate guy who used to train with Bruce Lee, etc. And he did a mixed sort of rules match. Theme, quite a lot of this theme was going on at the same time, but they changed the rules from low leg kicks. He was so he's a sort of American style, doing American style above the waist kickboxing. I think it was only about 3 rounds they did. Yeah, it was quite a good spar, but I'm digressing. So that might even been in this country. I can't remember. So yes, we come back to 21st fight, May the 9th, 1985. He beats Tom Fischer, unanimous decision. Then in Leon Spinks' 22nd fight, he fights Tom Franco Thomas and beats Tom Franco Thomas by unanimous decision on 29th of June 1985 at the Sonoma County Fairgrounds at Santa Rosa in California. So Leon Spinks' 23rd fight, he fights Kip Kane. Not Kip Kano the runner, this is Kip Kane. And his 23rd fight, Leon Spinks beats Kip Kane by a TKO in the 8th round on December the 13th, 1985 at the Felt Forum at New York City in New York. And he won the vacant WBC Continental Americas heavyweight title. So Leon Spinks in his 24th fight fights Dwight Muhammad Kwai. He changed his name from Dwight Braxton. He was born in 1953, the same year as Joe Budner. So Dwight Braxton and Dwight Muhammad Kwai. There's quite a lot of that going on, especially in the cruiserweight division. I won't go into detail, different names, but... And Leon Spinks loses his 24th fight against Dwight Muhammad Kwai by TKO in the 6th round on March the 22nd, 1986 at the Lawler Event Center at Reno in Nevada for the WBA Cruiserweight title. Reno, Nevada hosted on July the 4th, 1910. It hosted a comeback for 4 or 5 years of Jim Jeffries trying to get the title from Jack Johnson, which it didn't end up well for him. Also, 1986 was the year when, or it was the year of the World Cup in Mexico, which Argentina won, beating Germany 3-2 in the final. Germany would get their revenge the next World Cup in 1990 in Italy when Germany beat Argentina 1-0 in the final. But so I digress. Back to boxing. So we come to a opponent, Rocky Sikorsky. Rocky Sikorsky was a comeback opponent of George Foreman. But here, in Leon Spinks' 25th fight, he loses to Rocky Sikorsky by a TKO in the 6th round of the Schedule 10 on August the 2nd. August the 2nd of this year. Yeah, so August the 2nd, he loses to Rocky Sikorsky. I always said that wrong. I said it Soroski, but Rocky Sikorsky on August the 2nd, 1986 at Detroit Port Authority at Detroit Lakes in Minnesota. Detroit Lakes, not in Detroit. It's Detroit Lakes in Minnesota. Bit weird that, but so Leon Spinks comes up against a man who took Mike Tyson to the 10th round on his way up. Before the title, he won the title of Trevor Berwick. Jose Roberto, it took him to 10 rounds. And Mitch Bob Green and James Quick Tillis took Tyson the distance before he won the title. But he nearly did it, but he lasted to the last round, getting hit with that uppercut. So, 26th fight, he fights Jose Roberto, defected Cuban boxer, on a 1-round TKO of a Schedule 10 on January the 7th, 1987 at the Coconut Grove Convention Center at Miami in Florida. And January 7th was Muhammad Ali's birthday. He was born in 1942. So this would have been his 45th birthday. On the same day, he loses to Jose Roberto. If I've got my maths right there, the top of my head, yeah. So, Leon Spinks' 27th fight, he beats Jeff Jordan by a split decision over 12 rounds on the 28th of April 1987 at the Aichi Prefectural Gym, Aichi Prefectural Gymnasium in Nagoya, Japan. He won the vacant WBC Continental and America's heavyweight titles. He won that twice. So forget things like this. Japan loved Leon Spinks as well from his FMW days, from the show wrestling. Again, he did a couple of shoots because again of that Japanese wrestling federations. You have All Japan and New Japan. They have real shoots in there. So pretty much like an MMA match or Valley Judo match, all in. But Leon Spinks would come out in the show wrestling days and he cut his shoots in boxing gloves, kitted out in his boxing gear, boxing boots. The others would be in their wrestling gear. But again, they loved him. Again, he was quite a character, Leon Spinks. Which, you know, even the show wrestling, you get a lot of injuries. They put themselves for a lot of risks there. So, Leon Spinks in his 28th fight fights Angelo Massoon, and he loses by a KO in the 7th round of a Schedule 10 on May the 22nd, 1987 at Lecce in Italy. And again, it's one of them fighters you really see losing, really go down quick, actually, Leon Spinks. Highly likely to do the hectic parting he did, but again, good fighter, but just burnt out very quickly. But and Leon Spinks' 29th fight, he gets a draw against Jim Ashard, a split decision draw over 10 rounds on August the 29th, 1987 at Lane County Fairgrounds at Eugene in Oregon. And again, that's a day out from the date when 1963, 28th of August 1963, when Martin Luther King made his I Have a Dream speeches. That was the 28th of August 1963. So that would be 24 years, nearly to the day, a day out. A day out to this day. So Leon Spinks loses to Terry Mims on a split decision over 10 rounds on October the 20th, 1987. And the swing goes at Cleveland in Ohio. So, Leon Spinks fights his 31st fight against Ladislao Migangos on a split decision over 10 rounds on December the 20th, 1987, at the Convention Center Arena at San Antonio in Texas. So, Randall Cobb, again, amazing chin. It's a bit of a weird one. No one would knock him out, but he did get knocked out once by a more of a sort of, again, sort of like a more of a journeyman type fighter. It would take people the distance. I mean, I don't like using the word journeyman, but these are fighters. Again, it's not a bad word, I think, because these fighters test people massively, and they're still good fighters. They still knock out the sort of average man in the street. But I'm digressing. Don't like using that word, but again, I think it's a good word because they're good fighters. But yes, Randall Cobb did get knocked out, weirdly enough, on one night. But the punches he fought and never got put away with, just took their shots. Amazing chin. But the same with Jake LaMotta. He got stopped by Danny Nordico, I think. He got knocked out, but even though he's really one of the best chins ever, I'm digressing massively here. Randall Tex Cobb. He's in a few films also, Randall Tex Cobb. I think it's Raising Arizona was one of them. But 32nd fight, Leon Spinks fights Randall Tex Cobb and loses a majority decision over 10 rounds, March the 18th, 1988, in the Municipal Auditorium at Nashville in Tennessee. Scott Welsh would fight Henry Akinwande in Nashville, Tennessee, years later. On January the 11th, I think it was 1997? I'm sure. But 1988, March the 18th, 1988, Leon Spinks fought Randall Tex Cobb. Really good chin. Randall Tex Cobb went the distance with Larry Holmes. Underrated boxing skill, I think, but a lot of people don't agree with me. 1988 was the year of the Seoul Olympics, which, weirdly enough, Henry Akinwande competed in. Got his dole stopped as well, because they said he could get a job, because he could be a pro fighter, which was a bit unfair while he was doing the Olympics. You have Roy Jones get robbed in the finals against a Korean, only getting silver. Very worst decision I've ever seen. That, I think, by a long shot. The Koreans were giving prizes to the judges. That's all I'll say. The 5 judges at the time. I think it was computer scoring then. But Roy Jones beat Richie Woodall, who got bronze in that 1988 Olympics. Lennox Lewis was in that. He beat Riddick Bowe in the final, stopping him, 1988, in the Seoul Olympics. And you also add Eddie the Eagle in the Winter Olympics in Calgary of that year, in Alberta. So, and again, he was a good athlete. He come in to that Winter Olympics in Alberta, Calgary in Canada, and there was basically, he was a skier for years, since a kid, but England hadn't had any ski jumpers since 1928. So that's 60 years, and he come in and they didn't want him to qualify. He already qualified, so they raised the bar, and he raised the bar and he jumped higher. Only been doing it when he performed in them Olympics, 20 months to a year he'd been performing. Great story. Again, very risky thing they do. Good athlete, even though he was, looked upon a bit like a sort of comedian, etc. He was a good athlete. So I'm digressing massively. So back to Leon Spinks' 33rd fight. He fights Tony Morrison. Tony Morrison. He loses to Tony Morrison by a TKO in the first round of Schedule 10 on May the 30th, 1988 at the Marriott Hotel at Trumbull in Connecticut. The county would where Marlon Starlin would be born. He was born in Hartford, Connecticut, worth mentioning. Another thing, 1988 Seoul Olympics. Sorry, 1988, that's the Summer Olympics. 1988 Winter Olympics in Alberta, Calgary. You also had Jamaican bobsleigh team who were told by the army they weren't sprinters. I heard they weren't sprinters like in the film Cool Runnings. They were actually pulled from the army. But she had that Winter Olympics that year, same year as Leon Spinks fought Tony Morrison on the 30th of May 1988 and lost by TKO. So Leon Spinks' 34th fight. He beats Luke Guerra by a 3-round KO of Schedule 10 on November the 15th, 1991 at the Genesis Convention Centre at Gary, Indiana. So, Leon Spinks' 35th fight. He fights Andre Crowder. He beats Andre Crowder by a split decision over 10 rounds on the 28th of February 1992 at the Union Hall Countryside in Illinois. 1992 was the last year that the Winter Olympics were run in conjunction to the Summer Olympics. They changed it by, basically that Winter Olympics was the 3rd Winter Olympics France hosted in Albertville in 1992 in France, Winter Olympics. But instead of following suit 4 years later, they did it 2 years later in 1994 in Norway, in Lillehammer in Norway, and then carried it on every 4 years from then on. So a bit of a weird stactoid, but 1992 was also the year of the Barcelona Olympics. I think Felix Savon was in that, but I'm not too sure. But I'm digressing. So he beats Andre Crowder on February 28th, 1992. Then Leon Spinks' 36th fight. He gets a unanimous decision win over Rick Myers on March the 20th, 1992 at the Clarion Hotel Clarion Hotel Ballroom at St. Louis in Missouri. And Leon Spinks' 37th fight. He fights Rocky Bentley and beats Rocky Bentley by a 10 rounds point decision on 17th of June 1992 at the World Congress Center at Atlanta in Georgia. Atlanta, Georgia would host the 1996 Olympics. Atlanta, Georgia. Also home to the great Evander Holyfield. But he won the bronze he got by getting disqualified against Kevin Barry, hitting after the bell, which even Kevin Barry didn't agree with. That was in 1984. So, Leon Spinks' 38th fight. he fights Jack Jackson and beats Jack Jackson by a 3-round KO on the 24th of July in 1992, Union Hall Countryside at Illinois. Then Leon Spinks' 39th fight, he loses to Kevin Porter on points over 10 rounds on September the 26th, 1992 at Lansing in Michigan. Then Leon Spinks' 40th fight, he fights Kevin Pondexter and beats Kevin Pondexter by a 1-round KO. Scheduled 10 on December 11th, 1992 at the Union Hall at Countryside in Illinois. So, Leon Spinks in his 41st fight loses on points to James Wilder. No relation to Donate. He loses to James Wilder on points over 10 rounds on 27th of February 1993 at Davenport in Lower. Leon Spinks' 42nd fight, he fights Eddie Curry and wins by disqualification in the 9th round of a Scheduled 10 on June the 22nd, 1994. The same year when the World Soccer Cup was hosted in the USA, which Brazil won, beating Italy in the final 3-2 on penalties. After a 0-0 draw, 3-2 on penalties. Curry was disqualified in this fight after refusing to answer the bell for round 9, believing the fight was scheduled for 8 rounds. God. So, Leon Spinks' 43rd fight, he loses to Shane Sutcliffe by unanimous decision over 8 rounds on October the 1st, 1994. At the Civic Arena in Nanaimo in British Columbia in Canada. And October the 1st is synonymous with Muhammad Ali's last fight with Joe Frazier, the Fuller of Manila, in 1975, which would really end anything they were before, but it still carried on. Definitely Joe Frazier and Ali, yeah, so both. So we come to Leon Spinks' 44th fight. He loses to John Carlo by a KO in the first round, October the 22nd, 1994, the Convention Centre at Washington, DC. So, Leon Spinks in his 45th fight, penultimate fight, second from last in the boxing world. Was he going to wrestling with FMW? 45th fight. Leon Spinks loses to Ray Kipling on unanimous decision over 8 rounds on June the 19th, 1995 at Little Bit of Texas, weirdly enough, at St. Louis in Missouri. So his last fight, 46th fight, his last fight, Leon Spinks loses to Fred Hope on unanimous decision over 8 rounds on December the 4th, 1995, also at a little bit of Texas at St. Louis in Missouri. So, yeah, like I say, he fought Takada. I think that was in a real shoot. I'm sure it was, no, Takada. Koshi Tamura, that's what it was. Takada fought Trevor Berbick in a sort of real rules match, and Trevor Berbick went mad when he kicked him low, complained to the referee, ran out the ring, but again, and then I think it was New Japan or Old Japan, in a lot of them show wrestling matches, they'd have sort of death matches, all that sort of stuff, with all sorts of things going on around ringside, fire, etc. But Leon Spinks didn't compete in any of them, but Yeah, and Trevor Burbick ran out the ring. I think that's in the 1990s, I'm sure. 1991 rings a bell, but yeah. But back to Leon Spinks. Leon Spinks fought Koshi Tamra, and he just come out and stuck him down with a takedown and ground and pounded him. Leon Spinks has always come out with his gloves on and boots, boxing boots, but it was a waste of time, really. Total waste of time, really. But Leon Spinks did a couple of shoots, but he did lots of show wrestling, which he did really well in. And like I say, they risk a lot in them matches, especially the New Japan ones. So, Leon Spinks. Yeah, born on the 14th. Sorry, he was born on 11th of July, 1953, at St. Louis in Missouri. And he died in 1921, February the 5th, 1921, age 67. The great Leon Spinks burnt out very quickly, but before that burnout, he was good. He beat Muhammad Ali. Even though it was a faded Muhammad Ali, he still beat Muhammad Ali. Bang.